Today is January, I think the 26th, Tuesday, maybe the 27th. I know this month is really flying by. But I was watching something on TV a while ago that has struck a nerve, a very, very crucial, sensitive nerve that I felt like I needed to address other than just by talking, but actually for my viewers to see the various expressions on my face. Whenever I was growing up as a child, my grandmother, especially the one on my mother's side, whenever we would have a rough summer pertaining to it being extremely hot and we didn't get a whole lot of rain to the point that the farmers were struggling, she used to always tell us boys that whenever the farmers fail, we all fail. And in essence, that is true. Of course, we realize that now in today's society, we've got farming, agriculture all over the world. New Zealand, Ireland, England, Australia, everywhere. So it's not quite as effective today as what it was back in the 1800s and the early 1900s, whenever they was raised up to the point that commerce wasn't near as diversified as what it is today towards beans and corn and various chickens, and I could go on and on and on, poultry and eggs and milk and stuff like that. It's not near as crucial today as what it was whenever she was growing up as a girl, because whenever she was growing up as a girl, you keep in mind that about 57 to 58% of the people was associated with agriculture. And during that time, most people had little gardens. And if they didn't have a garden, come fall and in the wintertime, they suffered. They suffered tremendously. So our whole concept of living in comparison to what she dealt with then versus what we're dealing with today is kind of totally different in one way. But in another way, it's really a good analogy towards what the subject matter that I'm fixing to talk about right now pertaining to our children and our children's children and our grandchildren. Now, these are the things that we have valued today in knowing that without our children and our grandchildren, whenever they fail, we basically all fail. We all fail as a nation. We all fail as a society. Whenever you get to looking at the instability that this has all caused, not just with our politics, but also with the coronavirus, you have to acknowledge the fact that there has been a tremendous amount of fallout. I'm going to use the word fallout, or aftermath, that maybe not has been directly involved with the coronavirus, but indirectly, it is still affecting hundreds and millions of people's lives all over the world. This particular sequence or show that you're going to see this morning literally brought tears to my eyes whenever I sat and listened to it, even though the children that they was talking about was from the western side of America over towards the Las Vegas area, to where the majority of those people are openly sexually expression with their sexuality, pertaining to legalizing not just gambling in the Las Vegas area, but also legalizing to a certain extent of prostitution. Everybody knows what goes on in Las Vegas, even though it may not be legal directly in Las Vegas, but there's certain parts of Nevada where it is. So keep in mind where the story is originating from towards what type of environment that they've already created for themselves way before the coronavirus ever hit. But whenever you get to talking about children's lives and the devastation of children's lives, then it takes on a brand new meaning of just exactly what we're dealing with. Whenever I moved back here in 2014, David and I, my brother that's now dead, he passed away in the year 2017, we sat and talked about several different issues, not just about our particular past towards what we went through and how that we felt let down by the general public here in the local area, but we also put into the equation pertaining to our veterans, our military, in regards to how many people at that time was committing suicide. I don't know for sure what the rating is now today. I hope to God that it's changed, and I hope to God that it's changed for the better, not for the worse. But at the time, in 2015, whenever we had some little cards made up pertaining to the Windmill Ministries in regards to suicidal prevention, at that time we was receiving reports somewhere between 23 and 25 people a day that was committing suicide that had been associated with the United States military. Whenever you break down the morale in a force, in an army force, or in a group of people, these are the collateral damage that follows in regard to the morale being broken or the morale being let way down. The same way with the coronavirus pertaining to how many children now that has had to readjust their lives. And if you think of how hard and how difficult it's been for us adults to have to readjust, in which, to be quite frank with you, me personally, I haven't really gone through a great deal of transformation pertaining to being alone and being by myself, because I have been on the road since 2005, and I've basically been a one-man show towards being a solo horse and pony show, to the point that I've adjusted towards getting used to being by myself. Now, the coronavirus did bring somewhat of a transformation into my life, because the majority of the time, instead of me cooking, because I don't like to cook other than maybe warming up something in the microwave, I ordinarily go out and eat, because I'm by myself, and I know that if I was to sit and slave over a stove and cook a big meal, the majority of it's going to be thrown away, because I'm not going to be able to eat all of it. So rather than do that, I just go out and eat, because I'm by myself. The show that you're fixing to watch pertaining to the collateral damage in regards to all this has a very, very deep, substantial, meaningful, devastating, sad approach pertaining to suicide amongst our children. Those that possibly get a hold of this particular film that I'm watching right now, I want to advise you that if you are weak-minded, not to be in a disrespectful way, but if you can't handle pressure, if you can't handle change, if you can't handle the things that you've been exposed to, seek professional help immediately. And those that are so weak-minded to the point that maybe you shouldn't listen or watch this particular program, and it's not but a few minutes long, maybe you shouldn't even watch this program if you feel like that it's going to upset you, because the facts are upsetting, not just in the Las Vegas, Nevada area, but throughout our whole United States. And I'm sure it's worse than others. I know it is in your impoverished area, such as North Dakota, South Dakota, amongst our Native American people. that have went through so much sorrow in regards to alcoholism and drug addiction and people being without jobs and people being without hope. It's one of the highest ranking cultures of people here in America that are basically doing the same thing. So whenever you watch this, when you watch this, please keep in mind that these events isn't just happening in one particular state, in one particular area pertaining to the state of Nevada, pertaining to Las Vegas. This is going on worldwide. Worldwide. There's two areas that has always had a high ranking suicide rate, more so than the rest of the population. And one of those areas was in Northwest America, Washington State, and Oregon. And the reason why, because the way that it's been explained to me, was because they have so many days that it's either raining or misting rain or cloudy or looking like it's going to rain, to the point it creates an atmosphere of doom and gloom. The same way with the people up in Alaska that has to go through a transformation period as far as 6 months of darkness and being encooped into an area pertaining to, I think back years ago they used to call it something sickness, cabin sickness or cabin fever, pertaining to people being isolated in one particular area for too long. In other words, they couldn't go out and venture out and do things because it was too daggum cold up in the Alaska area. I think now, since the weather has changed and it's gotten warmer, I don't think the suicide rating is near as high today as what it was back years ago. Back years ago, it was a predominant problem in Alaska. But as you listen to this program, understand that the area that we're in right now could have been prevented if the people, by and large, would have done the right thing, going all the way back into the 80s, towards supporting a ministry that supported wide world and local utopia amongst our communities, amongst our states, and amongst our nations. We could right now be avoiding what we're seeing and hearing, not just about the coronavirus, but about the consequences that surround the coronavirus, pertaining to businesses shutting down, people feeling hopeless, people losing it towards going off the deep end, people taking their own lives. This is all in conjunction to the problems that even the Bible talks about. He who shall endureth unto the end, the same shall be saved. He who shall overcometh. Overcome what? Overcome doubt, overcome fear, overcome doom and gloom, overcome the things that has been brought upon to society just within the past 2 or 3 years that we've taken a great deal of notice of. But in actuality, it's been building for the past 30 plus years. So as you watch this program, let's always remember our children in prayer. That if we think that it's tough and hard on us, it's bound to be that much more harder and tougher on them, pertaining to the undeveloped minds, the undeveloped hearts. And even though they may look like they're grown by looking at them, because their DNA growed up awful quick, and they look like that that they should know better, pertaining to male and female, because of their hormone cycle and everything. Up here, mentally speaking, they still are not mature. And because they're not mature, they're prone of making harsh, terrible mistakes by trying to take their own lives. And of course, once more, going back to the morale, when you break down that morale, that fundamental fabric in society, when you break down that hope, when you break down that morale, and all you can look at is doom and gloom and despair, doom and gloom and despair, this is the consequences of it. So please, with a tender heart, watch this particular program in regards to our children, because once more, I'm going to look at this the same way as my grandmother looked at the farming community, that if we lose our children and our children's children pertaining to our grandchildren, we didn't just lose our children, but we lost our future. Please watch.
As COVID cases keep setting records around the country right now, to imagine a return to normalcy, especially in schools here. But remote learning, on top of its many logistical challenges, seems to pose an unexpected threat, perhaps, one involving the mental health of school kids. NBC's Kate Snow joins me now. Kate, President Biden signed an executive order last week promising to create COVID-safe conditions for in-person learning. Why are some teachers and educators saying that in-person learning actually has some crucial mental health implications?
Yeah, Hallie, so a lot of experts, educators, parents are concerned about the impact that remote learning is having on our kids' mental health. So there's a debate because, on the other hand, you have the health risks, physical health of COVID when you go back to in-person learning. The story we're about to tell you may be disturbing to some viewers because we're looking at a district where suicides are up dramatically. This morning, the great debate over whether to send kids back to in-person school. For Superintendent Jesus Jara in Clark County, Nevada, which includes Las Vegas, it's not even a question.
It's a priority. It's a priority for us to be really looking and bringing normalcy to our children and our family.
Since the district switched to remote learning last March, he says they've had 19 students take their own lives.
We lost another kid Saturday night.
This Saturday, I'm so sorry. The youngest, a third grader, just 9 years old. With virtual learning for nearly a year, Jara says students have slipped academically, lost time with friends, and have no face-to-face contact with teachers or staff who could help them in crisis. It's hard to know why someone takes their life, but do you personally think there is a link between virtual schooling and the number of suicides you've had?
I think there's a factor involved in this. Yes, I believe so.
In what sense?
I think that I think the isolation. I think the kids reaching out. They don't have that vehicle in school right now.
I'm gonna weigh in real quick on what he's talking about pertaining to educating these kids off of the computers. There was a reason why that I believe it was Paul over in Ezekiel or Romans or somewhere that said, as you shall see the days approaching, forsake not the assemblies of thyself together. There was a reason why that God, the Father, the Creator, looked down upon Adam whenever he had not created Eve and said that it is not good for man to be alone. Most people need interaction with human contact. Most people have never done without human contact for a long length of time. Can't everybody become a Jeremiah Johnson and go live out in the woods or in a hut somewhere by themselves and be content? Not everybody can go climb Mount Everest and be content. There's very, very few people that can climb Mount Everest. There's very, very few people that can go live like a mountain man way up into the mountains, because by and large, most people has to have that human contact. Like I was telling you earlier, I have made great pains and adjustments towards becoming by myself to the degree of keeping myself busy either in prayer or in research, in dissecting various shows and putting out various work to various people pertaining to using my YouTube platform, I have made those adjustments, and I feel like in a halfway decent way. But there's some people out there that just can't make those adjustments, especially whenever you're dealing with people that is at the brink of no end, towards not seeing no hope in sight, or people with undeveloped minds that just can't see over the next horizon towards things getting better. We're living right now in a nightmare with a lot of these children that are absolutely terrified of the things that are going on in the news and the things that are going on around them, because they have never ever had to experience anything even remotely close to this. And I'm just not talking about our children over here in America, but I'm talking about children all over the world. They have never had to deal with anything this harsh. And because of it, it is upsetting the ecosystem pertaining to life and the adjustment of life towards the reproductive system that has been in place now for thousands of years. So as you watch this, remember there's people around you that, even though they may not look like they're in dire need, or they may not ask you to help them, in reality, they actually need your help. They're begging, just like a cat or a dog begging for your attention. It's the same way with people, and a lot of times people hide those emotions. A lot of times people are ashamed to come out and say, you know what, I really need to talk to somebody face to face. I really need to be close to somebody.
There is a factor. I'm not, anecdotally, I believe it is.
In rural Washington state, high school junior Lily Villa says her anxiety got worse after in-person classes stopped nearly a year ago.
Always have someone physically next to me. I would always have someone I can physically talk to without having to dial their number or text them through Snapchat. And now I'm just with my cat in my room.
Do you feel a lot of uncertainty right now? Is that part of the anxiety?
Yes. I'm in my junior year. I'm planning to take the SATs. I'm doing college searches, and right now I'm not learning. I'm not retaining any information.
Once more, you're dealing with an uncertain future. You're dealing with emotional issues. You're dealing with an atmosphere that has become very, very unstable, to the point that a lot of these kids don't see a future because of the mismanagement of our politics, and because of so many people getting sick and losing jobs and being at the point of despair. They want out. They want to check out. They don't want to be a part of this no more. They see the remorse. They see the hurt. They see the anger. They see the despair. They can not only see it, but they feel it. They understand it. And the things that they're experiencing, they don't like. And there's nowhere to run and hide, because everybody is confined right now because of the coronavirus. And the only escape that they can see is the escape of suicide. This is another contributing factor of that sorrow that has befallen upon to society, that, yes, even the Bible talks about, that in the last days great sorrows will fall upon the humanity. There's nothing funny about this. There's nothing funny about people being humiliated, demoralized, to the point that they feel like that there is no hope, there is no future. They're better off dead than they are alive. This is the true reality of what we're dealing with today. And it's not just amongst the few, okay? Like I said, whenever David and I come out here, or I come back here, we realize the problem in the community towards them not being educated about post-traumatic stress disorder, about people that's been in the military, and we also understood the problems about our military towards taking care of those who have taken care of us or was willing to take care of us. Once more, I basically got penalized or punished for trying to do a good deed. The whole community, or I say the whole community, a great deal of the community come up against our purposes and our dreams and our visions out here at 291 Thompson Road, Sharon, Tennessee, zip code 38255. And these distressful, resistant movements even added that much more depression into my particular life after that I lost my brother and then had to be arrested for trying to do a good deed under the Good Samaritan laws with some children across the road. And it got so asphyxiated in my mind while being incarcerated in the Weakley County Sheriff's Office up here that I myself was under the pretense of looking at things being more glamorous towards dying than it was towards being alive. And you can't tell me that the children of Israel that was going through concentration camps, going through gas chamber after gas chamber, that was being starved, having rats chewing on their bodies, being depleted of medical attention. You can't tell me that those people wasn't having the same type of emotions and the same type of feelings, because they was. You know, we can't famine what the people in the high rises, the Twin Towers, was thinking or feeling during the time that they felt like that the best way for them to end this whole scene of the buildings being on fire, this was before they ever fell, was for them to jump out of windows. I don't know how many people committed suicide before the buildings actually fell. But whenever you reach that state of no return, like we're viewing right now with our children, it's a very, very critical state that could actually cost them their lives if we don't pay more attention to the mental health of our future pertaining to our children. Because if we lose our children, we have lost our future as a nation. I have told you this before. And as seeing the red flags going up, we need to pay more attention to children with undeveloped minds. You know, some children at the age of 8 has the mindset of a child at the age of 16. But some children at the age of 16 only has the mindset of a child that's 8, depending upon their growth and depending upon how that they have been able to handle problems. And some people, even as adults, can't handle severe problems to the degree that they feel like that the walls is caving in on them, and the best escape is the quick escape, which is the escape of suicide. And we know as a thriving, surviving society that suicide is not the answer.
Across the country, 42% of students are attending schools that are virtual only. Chicago wants to open public schools for in-person learning next week, but the city's teachers union is refusing to return. For you, the benefits of getting kids in the building that they might get from it doesn't outweigh the dangers.
At this point, it does not.
Lori Torres is a mother of 3, and virtual learning hasn't been easy.
Cayó una nevera las otras noches, ¿no?
But she's also a Spanish teacher for kindergarten through 8th grade.
If we move quickly, Are we prepared for the damage that it can cause? Are we prepared for how many kids will get sick? Are we prepared for how many teachers and staff members will get sick? Because it will happen.
You see, the collateral damage that we're talking about here, it's stemming from the coronavirus, but it's not actually being promoted in a direct way, but more so in an indirect way towards the complications that goes along with these severe illnesses. Like I said, once these children go to looking at their personal future and they don't see no future, their morale instantly goes way down. And because they haven't never been subjected to anything like this, they can't handle it. They can't begin to famine. You know, how much worse can it get? I can't no longer go out and play with my kindergarten skills. I can't no longer go down here to the local lake and play on the shores of the lake. I can't no longer go down here at the bowling alley or the theater. I can't no longer go down here with my best friends and all of us pull together. It's like all of a sudden life is no longer worth living, especially in some of these intolerable areas that is just, it's I don't even have words to express the horrifyingness that they're going through right now.
Members will get sick because it will happen.
The city points to a study of Chicago Catholic school students back in the classroom that found in-person learning poses a low risk of COVID transmission, even lower than the risk in the broader community. But the union says the Catholic school system is much different than public schools. And they say since pre-K and kids with disabilities went back to public schools, there have already been positive cases at more than 60 facilities. President Biden was asked about the situation in Chicago Monday.
The teachers I know, they want to work. They just want to work in a safe environment and as safe as we can rationally make it, and we can do that.
Teachers and students waiting for answers as school districts across the nation are tested by a relentless pandemic. A lot of teachers are also asking for vaccinations before they go back inside a school. Lori told me she'd feel a lot more supportive if she had both shots. Hallie.
So the collateral damage goes beyond the extent of it just being people getting sick and dying in an emergency room, being hooked up to a ventilator. The collateral damage that's expanding towards restaurants shutting down and businesses no longer being able to serve the general public is just astronomical towards what we're seeing come about in society, especially with our children. The problem was already there with our veterans because the way that our veterans was not taken care of and the way that our veterans felt like that nobody actually was grateful for their sacrifices that they made for the people. The problem was already there with the veterans. Hopefully that problem has resided a little bit, and hopefully there ain't no 24 or 25 suicides a day happening by our former United States military. Hopefully that will eventually go way, way down to the point that we can take care of those who took care of us. But to watch children end their lives, because once you pull that trigger, swallow those pills, jump off that building, slice your wrist. Once you do something that dramatic, there's no way of retracting it and backing up from it ordinarily. In other words, if you put a hangman's noose on your neck while you're standing on a chair and then suddenly you kick the chair out from underneath you, there is no going back and redoing that. Once you do that, it's game over. Just like once you pull the trigger in that gun, you can't retract that bullet and make it go back into that gun and act like that it never occurred. We're not dealing with a video game here to the point that you can press a delete button And suddenly, all of a sudden, everybody stands back up and we all get a second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth chance at this thing. These children with these undeveloped minds don't understand this. And in reality, in some sense, some of them may feel like that they're in some sort of a video game, and the horrors that they're experiencing right now is overwhelming. But at the same time, because they've played so many video games, in their mind's eye, for some strange reason, they actually may have convinced themselves, you know what, even if I pull the trigger, I know that I can hit the delete button and everything's going to be all right and I'll wake up out of this misery. No, it don't work that way. Not in reality. We're dealing with people's lives here. Let's not never, ever take this for granted in regards to how sensitive people's lives are, especially those that are going through stuff that they have never encountered before, that they just may not be able to encounter. It may be so overwhelming to them that they just are not going to be able to deal with this, especially if they don't have somebody to call upon. So in ending, they do give out a suicide watch number in addition to the Veterans Association that has their own personal hotline to be able to text, talk people that are concerned about other people's lives towards not watching people waste their lives in a problem that one day, hopefully, we'll be able to all get over.
Kate Snow, such an important story, and I'm so appreciative to you for bringing that to us. Kate, thank you. As always, if you're having thoughts of suicide or self-harm, we ask you to look for help. Call the number we're about to put up on your screen, 1-800-273-TALK. You are not alone.
You are not alone.
You are not alone.
Remember that. You are not alone. Regardless whether you be an elderly, regardless whether you be a veteran, regardless whether you be a child, regardless whether you be a Christian or a non-Christian, regardless whether you be Hindu, voodoo, whatever, you are not alone. There's people out there that care about people, that are willing to sit down and talk and reason towards the problems that has overwhelmed you, to the point of trying to make things easier as we're all dealing with this situation at the same time. And I'm one of the first ones to tell you, it's been difficult. It's been extremely difficult towards having to put on a mask. And remember, every time you get out of your automobile, you got to put on your mask. You got to put on your mask. You got to put on your mask. Wash your hands. Don't be shaking people's hands. Stay away from people a certain distance. Don't get close up while you're in the line towards going to pay for something. Don't get within 2 foot or 3 foot of somebody. Stay back another 3 or 4 or 5 foot. Practice social distancing. I realize that it's a difficult ongoing challenge, but it's one that we must endure to if we are going to eventually get over the horizon in seeing light at the end of the tunnel. Even the Governor Beshears in Kentucky, made glamorous suggestions the other day about how that the Kentuckians was doing so well by practicing social distancing, to the point that now their numbers are starting to go down in Kentucky. And the reason why is because they're all doing the same thing. They've decided to start wearing masks, start socially distancing. Don't be going to places if you don't have to. Wash your hands, practice clean hygiene, etc., etc. The governor was bragging. The governor of Kentucky was bragging on their citizens because their numbers have declined. This is going to take a universal, unified movement if we're going to get over this in any measure of time, other than it being a long measure of time. It's going to take a unified movement. Thank you for your time. Good luck to all of us. Once more, if you have any type of suicidal intentions, dial this number 1-800-273-8255. There's help out there. People will talk to you. People will spend time with you if you'll only reach out towards using these lifelines in these dire times. Thanks again. Good luck to all of us, and shalom.